Hello friend, welcome back to my kitchen. My name is Becky if you're new, and today it is a big food preservation day. This is my 30-quart stainless steel stock pot that I just filled with water. I'm gonna get this to a boil because we've got a lot of peaches that we are going to be processing today. This is not all the peaches that I have. We went peach picking as a family yesterday. We go to the same farm every year. I'll link that farm down below if you live in the Portland metro area and you want some delicious peaches. I've been going there, I think this is the 4th year in a row. And we are gonna be turning these into quite a few different things. I have a bunch still in the fridge that we're gonna be eating fresh. I don't buy a ton of fruit in the winter because what I like to do when it's in season, we enjoy eating fresh fruit. And so I'm gonna be eating a ton of these peaches fresh. We're gonna be making some more granola today because one of my favorite ways to eat fresh peaches is actually on homemade granola, and it's just delicious. I ran out into the garden today because we're gonna be turning some of these peaches into peach salsa. I'm gonna grab a couple peppers. We actually harvested all these banana peppers yesterday, and we are going to be canning these as well. We're gonna be making pickled banana peppers, which I've never done before, so that's gonna be fun. So I have right here one of my favorite canning cookbooks. I'll link this one and my other favorite canning cookbook down below. The recipe for the pickled peppers is actually this recipe we're gonna be following here though. I'll link this recipe. This is from the National Home Food Preservation website. My 2 favorite canning cookbooks didn't actually have a pickled banana pepper recipe in it, so I just Googled it on the National Home Food Preservation website and it popped right up. And then I've got a bunch of clean jars. I just pulled these jars out of the dishwasher and we're gonna be using these for some of the projects. Some of the projects we are actually going to be freezing. So I've got my favorite freezer containers. I like these because they stack really well in my freezer and you can reuse them. I used these last summer, they've been washed, and I'm gonna use them this summer. So let's see, what should we start with? I think we're gonna start with these banana peppers because they're gonna be really, really easy and it will feel good to get something checked off the list right away. I'm also still waiting for my water to come up to a boil, and I need that water up at a boil so that we can remove the skins from the peaches. So these are blueberries we picked as a family last night. We have been eating our fill with them fresh. I'm gonna pop these back in the fridge. They've already been washed. I am not sure if we're gonna get any blueberries into the freezer because we've been eating so many fresh. Like I said, I don't buy a ton of fruit, like berries and things, out of season. I do if it's a special occasion, like a party or something, but we try to just enjoy as much of them when they're in season as we can and get our fill. So here are our banana peppers. I have not washed these yet. So these peppers smell so good. These are actually a sweet banana pepper. Banana peppers can either be hot or sweet, and I grew sweet ones. And what I'm gonna raw pack method is I am just gonna slice these into rings. I want about 1/4 of an inch. I'm gonna taste one of these. Those are really good. They have no heat to them at all. Now I do have a food processor that I could pull out and slice these with that, but my food processor probably does more like 1/8 of an inch, and I want these just a little bit bigger than what my food processor does. So I'm just gonna take my knife and do this by hand. I don't have a ton of these. I will hopefully be able to do this a few times throughout the growing season. This is all that I have ripe at this moment. There are definitely more peppers on my plants, but this is what I've got. So I'm gonna go ahead and just use my knife instead of pulling out the food processor. I'm gonna be water bath canning these, so I don't need to pull out my pressure canner because we're gonna be pickling them in vinegar. So this ended up giving me a lot more peppers than I was anticipating. It's always funny how that ends up happening. So what I'm gonna do is actually weigh out these peppers because the recipe calls for 2.5 to 3 pounds of peppers. I still don't think I have as many as the recipe calls for. I'm gonna get out my scale, pounds, and we're gonna weigh these peppers. Just over a pound. We're at 19.1 ounce or so. So I'm definitely gonna cut the brine recipe in half. The reason I didn't start my brine before I started this is because I wanted to know how many peppers I had once I cut the tops off and got them diced. And so because I have just over a pound and this recipe calls for 2.5 to 3 pounds, I am definitely gonna be cutting this brine recipe. Probably, yeah, I'll just cut it in half and that should be good. So over here on the stove, we are going to get the brine ready to go. This might actually work out perfect because I might actually just water bath can these pickles before I even start blanching the peaches. This is kind of how I do these food preservation days when I have multiple things I want to get done. I don't always know exactly what order I'm going to do it in. I just know that I want to try to be as efficient as possible. So I might think I have a plan, but then I deviate from that just a little bit. So the first thing I'm gonna start with is vinegar. And when you're canning, if you're water bath canning, you wanna make sure your vinegar is at least 5% acidity. And let me just double check on here to make sure this one is, because I just bought this. Yes, it says right here. Organic apple cider vinegar, distilled water, and it is a 5% acidity. So we're good there. I'm gonna add the water and salt. I'm gonna go ahead and jar these in 1/2 pints because I think that's a better size for my family. I don't know how many I'm gonna be able to fill here. And what I wanna do is actually add my spices to the base of this. I'm gonna add mustard seed into the base of each jar. And then I'm gonna go ahead and pack my peppers in here. I wanna try to pack these peppers as tight as possible. Because we're doing a raw pack method, they will shrink in the canning process. When I was looking up recipes for this, I did find a couple refrigerator pickle recipes, which I think would be really delicious as well. But there is something nice about being able to can these and then pop them on the pantry shelf and them not take up refrigerator space all year until we eat through them. So I am working on leaving the correct amount of headspace the recipe calls for. And I think I'm gonna go ahead and grab my funnel and I'll make a little bit less of a mess that way. I think I may have made the perfect amount of brine too. So I have washed, whoop! Well, they were washed. I'm gonna rewash those 2 lids, and I'm gonna get a new lid and a ring on each jar. So this water is about the same temperature as the brine was going into those jars. When you are canning, it's important that the contents of the jar and the water that you put the jars into is about the same temperature, because that helps prevent, well, jars cracking. If you put really cold jars into boiling hot water, then you're more likely to have jars break on you. What I just put in there is a little rubber thing that you can put in the base of any large pot, and you can turn any pot into a water bath canner that can cover jars by about 2 inches of water. I used to use a towel for that. You just don't want your glass jars sitting on the bottom of the pot, because it can cause them to break because the pot gets hotter where it is closer to the element. All right, I'm gonna turn this on. Put the lid on. This needs to come up to a rolling boil. Once it comes up to a rolling boil, I'm gonna set my timer for the proper canning time. The thing about canning is where you live, your elevation can actually adjust the amount of time that something needs to process for. So for me, I believe we are gonna process these for 10 minutes once they come up to a boil. If you live at higher elevations, it can go even higher. Now this recipe does state to use a pint jar or a quart jar, and you're gonna have different times depending on how large the jar is. It doesn't give a time for half pints. So because it doesn't give a time for half pints, I'm just going to do the time for the larger jar. So for 1 pint. Okay, so this is ready to go. And the next project we're gonna do is not actually a canning project. This project is going to be just a delicious thing to eat for breakfast with these peaches. One of my favorite breakfasts is homemade granola with fresh peaches that are in season, and I am completely out of that. So I just grabbed a bunch of ingredients we need. I found 3 different things of honey, so we're gonna try to use this up. I grabbed the random nuts that I had that need to be used up. So I have pecans and almonds, and then I need to get a big bowl to make a good sized batch of granola, because I'm going to be enjoying a lot of granola with these peaches. And it looks like I don't have that many oats in here, so I'm gonna have to go grab some more oats. I'm measuring the oats just so I have a good idea of how much kind of sweetener and salt I should add to this. So that's 4 cups, because this is a 2-cup measure. I'm gonna go grab more oats. We go through a lot of oats around here, so I do buy my oats in a 25-pound bag, and I store them in these buckets with a lid that screws on and off, so it's nice and easy. So I think I'm gonna do, that was 4, 6, I think I'll do 8 cups of oats. And while I'm at it, I'm gonna go ahead and fill this container up so that I have oats in my kitchen. I do get the majority of my baked goods from Azure Standard, and Azure is sponsoring today's video. They specialize in organic, but they do sell conventional things as well. I've been buying from them for, I think, going on 4 years now, and they are an amazing company. So if you are interested in a great place for organic goods, I will link them down in the description box as the first link down below. So here I am adding all the honey that I have left in my house. So that means I need to get some more honey. If you're new around here, we just got honeybees this year, but I don't think we're gonna be collecting any honey from our bees until next year. So I just put those 3 upside down, and while those are dripping down to the base so I can get all that beautiful honey out of there, I'm gonna add some coconut oil. salt. I do have a recipe, but I'm just kind of going with what I have on hand and adding things that I think sound good, that are gonna be good with these peaches. I need to chop these almonds. I did wash this cutting board so that these almonds aren't gonna taste like peppers. And I grabbed a new knife. I'm just gonna put all these almonds in there because these have been in my freezer for a while and I kind of want to get them used up. Almonds are actually my favorite nut inside of granola. Now I'm going to add some flavorings. I have some vanilla. And what I added last time to my granola that was delicious was, if I can find it, almond extract. And I think this will go really well with peaches. A little bit goes a long way though. I'm going to stir this together and give it a taste test for sweetness and if it needs anything else added to it. Oh, that almond extract smells so good. That's gonna go so well with the peaches. Learning to make homemade granola was one of the reasons I started buying in bulk, because I was tired of every few weeks having to buy oats. And so I think oats were the first thing I bought in a 25-pound bag so that I just didn't have to buy it as often. And then I started buying other things. But if you're new to bulk buying, Azure is where I started buying my bulk items through when I first started buying bulk items, is what I would recommend, because I've learned some things over the years, is focus on buying in bulk what you already purchase. Just because you buy something on occasion doesn't necessarily mean I would recommend buying it in bulk, because you might not be able to go through it fast enough before it needs to be eaten. So I have pared back on what I buy in bulk, and I really focus on those staple items that we go through very regularly, that I don't even have to think about worrying about going through them before they go bad. So for me, I keep things like oats, flours, beans, rice, fats. I keep butter in the freezer, oil, sweeteners, sugars, and things like that. But some things like nuts, we can't go through nuts fast enough to buy a huge bulk quantity. So I have learned for my family, it's best to just buy 1 or 2 pounds of nuts at a time and go through them before they go bad, even if I keep them in the freezer. But your family might go through a tremendous amount of nuts. Say you make your own homemade nut milk and you go through it. It might be more cost effective to buy a huge bag of nuts and store it in the freezer. So that's just one thing I've learned. I did set the timer for the canner because it is now boiling. I'm gonna taste this. That's really good. I was worried I didn't have quite enough honey. I do have more honey in bulk that I bought from Azure downstairs, but it's crystallized. And so I wanted to use all those 3 jars up first before I grab that, and I don't think I'm gonna need it. Salt's perfect, almond extract is perfect. These process for the proper amount of time. And then I did have them sit in the canner with the canner off for about 10 minutes, just so that they can cool down just a little bit. And now we have 2 projects basically done. And they didn't shrink too much. Sometimes if you don't pack them nice and tight, if you raw pack, they'll shrink and you'll only have half of a jar filled with peppers. But I think we packed those really tight and they look really good. I'm gonna turn this on really high and I'm gonna get this going because we're gonna be blanching our peaches in here. Now we are going to be making a peach salsa, but I'm not gonna can that peach salsa. What I have learned over the years because I've been canning and doing these types of things where I like to buy from local when possible, when they're in season, and put it up for my family to enjoy all year, is I'm pretty selective on how I like to put things up. And I want to make sure that if I'm going to go through the effort of purchasing from a local farmer and turning it into something delicious, that it is delicious and worth my time. I have found that and so we're not actually going to can this next recipe, but we do need to remove the skins off the peaches. It can take trial and error of learning the way you like things preserved. For example, we prefer frozen corn over canned corn, but I prefer canned marinara sauce over frozen marinara sauce because I think it tastes just as good canned, and I'd rather not have it in my freezer. I also like canning these peppers because in the canning process, it slowly cooks, gently cooks those peppers, and so they're going to be a little bit softer when we go to put them on sandwiches or tacos or whatever it might be. But some things I don't want them to be cooked in the canning process. Like, we don't enjoy canned carrots, but my mother-in-law loves canned carrots. And so it's just a matter of finding what works for your family. I'm gonna wash this bowl out, and then we're gonna use this as a ice bath to bath our peaches in once they come out of, I should grab a scrubber, once they come out of the boiling water. So one way to get started in this is look at what you already buy. If you buy canned corn and you want to start buying from local farmers when corn is in season and putting it up, if you on a regular basis buy canned corn over frozen corn, then try canning it and see what your family thinks. I always buy frozen corn, and I have found that I prefer frozen corn over canned corn, and I did do a couple jars of canned corn last year, and we ate them, but I don't want to do them again. But I'm glad I tried it because now I know we definitely prefer the frozen corn over the canned corn. And we're having a late corn season here. Last year, this year, I was putting up corn, but I called my local farmer over the weekend, and they said they're about 2 weeks out until they'll be ready for me to be able to pick up some corn from them. I didn't grow corn in my garden this year because I've tried growing corn 4 years in a row, and I've had a very, very poor success. So I grew more flowers where I would have put corn this year. Okay, so I'm gonna fill this with cold water and ice. I'm waiting for my water to come up to a boil so I can prep some of the other produce that we need to make the salsa. And I'm also gonna be prepping some of these peaches. In 2.5 weeks, we are having a Galentine's Day dinner party. So I've got a group of friends that I used to work with, and every year we used to do a Galentine's Day, which is just like a girls' Valentine's Day. But this last year we weren't able to make that happen. And so before the end of garden season, I thought it'd be fun to have them over and do a Galentine's Day party, even though it's not February. And I wanna make a peach cheesecake. And so I need to prepare these peaches for that. The recipe calls for frozen peaches. I could probably use fresh, but I'm not gonna be making that for a couple weeks. So I figured I would prep some of those for that as well. Okay, I've got some onions here and some serrano peppers, and we need to wash this cilantro. Growing the cilantro in the shade has allowed me to have cilantro all summer long, even when it has been in the 90s. So I have a couple serrano peppers here I'm gonna put in my salsa. Whoa, whoa. Those are hot. Okay, so I'm not gonna put all those in there. Oh my, those are hot. We need onions for our salsa. I don't need this red onion. These onions we're going to seed, so they've kind of got a big center part that I'm gonna have to take out. You can see that flower head on the top. It's not a big deal, I just need to remove that. because these are garden fresh onions, they have some dirt on them. So I like to actually wash them after I peel them, just because there's some dirt on the peel. I'm gonna take all this out to the compost when I'm done here. That serrano pepper is delicious. The last few peppers I've tried out of my garden have not been hot, and I like spicy, so that's really good. My water is at a boil, so what I'm gonna do is score some of these just at the base, and what that's gonna do is help release the skin. We're definitely not doing all of these, and I'm actually wanting to process the bigger peaches because the little peaches are more of a good personal size, so that we know that the whole peach is gonna get eaten. So I'm actually processing these larger ones first. I have two different varieties of peaches here. These ones that are darker red, these are called Veterans, and the smaller ones are called Victorians, I believe. I get these in the boiling water. But first I can see my granola needs to be stirred. I think I'm gonna go ahead and turn the oven off because it's very close to being done and I do not want this to burn. It always browns if you are new to making granola around the outside before it browns on the inside. So it's important to stir it every few minutes, or about every 10 minutes. I have burnt granola before and it's always a bummer. So I went through all my peaches and I picked the ones that I'm going to process today and keep the ones out that are still looking really nice, that we'll eat fresh. I think I'm gonna go ahead and process this one too. These are gonna go back in the fridge. They're nice and small, so they're kind of personal size. And if we don't go through them before they need something done with them, I will process them. But for now, the ones that I just blanched plus these ones are the ones that are going to be turned into something. And I have an ice cream that we're gonna make as well that I almost forgot about. So let's get, this is back up to a boil. Some more peaches in the water. I'm gonna go pop these back in the fridge. I'm gonna turn this off and we are now done with this pot. So the first thing I wanna do, because I know I wanna make sure I have enough peaches to fill 3 of these containers, is I'm gonna make peaches and cream ice cream in the Ninja Creamy. So because we blanched these peaches, they should be relatively easy to peel. And you know what, the really beautiful ones, I might do 2 things at once. I might pull out something that I'm gonna flash freeze the peaches for the peach cheesecake that I'm gonna be making in a couple weeks, because I want those to be in nice slices, and some of these I might kind of damage a little bit. So those are the ones that can go in the salsa or in the Ninja Creamy, because it doesn't matter what they look like. These are supposed to be freestone peaches, which means that it's easy to take the pit off. Oh, but I don't know. Okay, that wasn't too bad. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is grab a cookie sheet with a piece of parchment paper. Let's move this basket and these containers. And I'm gonna have a couple things going at once. So this is a nice, relatively looking peach. There's this part that's still good, but I don't want that to go for my peach cheesecake. So I'm going to just start laying out here slices of peaches that we will put in the cheesecake. I need 2 pounds of peaches for the peach cheesecake. I got all my peaches peeled. I got them diced and sliced. I have 1 whole cookie sheet diced in the freezer, flash freezing. I was thinking I might want diced peaches to make peach iced tea, peach hot sauce, or things like that. So I wanted to give myself enough to do other projects with. I have 1 whole sheet tray of sliced for the cheesecake. I've got 3 pints here, plus a big bowl here that we're gonna turn into salsa. So I got my onions washed, my peppers washed. I need to peel probably both those heads of garlic. I technically am in a pantry challenge, but I do have some cream on hand because this coming weekend I am responsible for making 3 chocolate desserts for my friend's birthday. And I allowed myself to buy some cream for some of those recipes. And I'm gonna borrow just some of that to add into our peach ice cream. So right now, all this is peaches. And I could throw this in the freezer and that could be our peach ice cream base for the Ninja Creamy. But to make it peaches and cream, I'm gonna add probably about a 1/4 cup of cream in each one of these containers. I'm not adding any sugar. This is just cream and peaches. You know what I might add? To make it more well-rounded. Oh yeah. I'm gonna be very conservative. I'm gonna add 2 drops of vanilla extract in each container. And then I'm gonna add a pinch of salt. I like the balance of sweet and salty, so just a little pinch. There's a bunch of recipes for the Ninja Creamy that have like protein powder and all sorts of things. I haven't tried any of those. I've mostly just used fruit as the base. My mother-in-law makes one with home. It will get mixed up even more when I turn this into ice cream using the machine. There is a max fill line, so I just want to make sure that I don't have any of these over that max fill line. And you want to make sure that the tops are nice and flat, frozen flat. So all I'm going to do is throw these into my freezer. And again, you want to make sure you freeze them flat. And I have 3 ice creams bases made up. I just have to spin them in the Ninja Creamy. Now I'm gonna go ahead and peel some garlic. I am gonna be making this salsa in the food processor, but I do want to give the food processor a little bit of help by just breaking down these onions just a little bit. So now I've got some lemons here, and I'm gonna use lemons in this instead of limes for 2 reasons. One, I actually like the flavor better of lemon than lime, and I have these in my fridge, and they need to be used up. So for those reasons, I'm gonna get these lemons over top of these peaches. Okay, so that is all of those lemons. I have more if I need more, but I wanted to get these peaches mixed around in that lemon juice. So the first thing I'm gonna do for this peach salsa is actually chop up my onions, and I'm gonna do this in batches so that I can get an even chop on these onions. I also have my cilantro washed up here. And you can chop your onions as fine or as coarse as you want them. I'm gonna grab out a big bowl and I'm gonna go ahead and get these in here as they get chopped. If you overfill it, then it doesn't chop very evenly. This might be too full. Now I'm gonna add my chilies and all the garlic that I peeled. And I'm gonna make this super fine. I think I'm gonna try to reserve some of the liquid and just put the peach chunks in it so that I can control how liquidy this salsa is going to be. So I have this much liquid that I can add to this if I need to, but I think I'm probably gonna keep it out. I'm gonna taste this and see what it might need. A couple big pieces of peach in there. I'm just gonna break up with this spatula. I may have added a little too much onion, so if I need to add more peaches, I have more peaches I can go grab. Let me pull this peach out. There was one more big piece in there that I'm gonna blend up again and get that in there. Before I taste this though, I'm gonna add some salt and some cumin. I'm excited for this. I'm just gonna take a spoon. Wow. That is perfect. That has some beautiful heat to it. It's not overpowering, but it's got a nice warmth. I don't think I'm gonna change anything about this. I don't think I'm going to add any more salt. I like just that hint of cumin. We're gonna have some of this with dinner tonight. So I'm gonna chop up those big pieces of peach that we had here. Might as well get that in here. Now I'm gonna keep probably about 2 cups of this out and we will just enjoy eating this for the next week or so. I think I'm gonna leave about this much salsa out. I have some chips that we can enjoy with this salsa. And then I'm just going to go ahead and jar this up into freezer containers. This was so nice to have on hand. There's something so nice about the peach flavor in winter. It freezes really well. I even use this as like a base for making different rices. I would thaw this salsa and I would cook the rice with this in the Instant Pot and it was so good. So, so good. I'm gonna do 2 in these pint-size containers and then I'm gonna do, or maybe I'm gonna do 3 in the pint-size containers. These are all the pints I have left. And then I'm gonna do the rest in half pints. And that will be fantastic. It'll be nice to have a variety. So depending on how much I wanna get out of the freezer, I can have more options. And the nice thing about when you freeze your salsa is you don't have to follow someone else's recipe because you don't have to make it canning safe. You can just make it to your own flavor preferences. We did it. We got everything done that I set out to get done, except the sheet pans that have the sliced peaches and the diced peaches. Those are not completely frozen. So once they're completely frozen, I'll take those out and put them in a freezer bag, and then we can use them for other projects coming up. I've got dinner done. I'm really excited about. We got all that peach salsa taken care of. That was a huge hit last year, and so I'm really glad to have that back in my freezer. We got some banana peppers. Hopefully I'll be able to jar up a few more half pints of banana peppers. Our granola is done and delicious. I'm excited to have that granola with the fresh peaches that I didn't do anything with. And we are gonna sit down to a steak dinner and homemade tortillas and some corn dip, which is gonna be delicious. So thank you, friend, for being here as we got all these projects done. It feels really good to be in food preservation season. I so enjoy this time of year. It's fun to get creative and think of different ways to put things up, and also continue to make the same recipes that we find that are absolutely delicious and tried and true. So if you want to watch some more of my videos, I'll pop some here. You can go enjoy between now and my next upload. I want to thank you for taking time out of your day to spend time with me. Whether you are new or returning, I greatly appreciate every single one of you. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being you, and I can't wait to see you next time. Bye, friend.